In a world where children are forced to participate in underground life and death battles, and are also kept. So also in the background, some dude decides to go to his father's house straight to Valhalla. But before that, he tells us the story that led. The action takes place in the arena of a fight club. And no, this is not a reference to the film of the same name with. Here, grown men are betting on their winner in the hope of winning back their already lost money. Well, a pretty good business, career growth, that's it. One of the guys in the arena begs the other to come together for a draw, because they are both just prisoners in this terrible place. The boy begins to hesitate a little, because after all, he also has feelings. But his master sees all these. The opponent did not even have time to blink a finger as his head was separated from his torso by a professional blow with a kitchen knife. The crowd is just perplexed by what is happening. This guy is constantly winning, and they are constantly losing. They see in the guy only a ruthless monster who has been forced to kill people in this arena since childhood. On the next page, the guy is already chained up like an animal in a cage. He did a very good job today and therefore deserved to. And here are the treats. Meat soup with the addition of a special ingredient, especially for our winner. The dude is so hungry that he can't control himself and just gulps down all the soup that was on the plate. Now he is full and satisfied because in such conditions food becomes a real rarity, but not everything is as good as you might think. This guy tells the secret ingredient of this soup. It's made from the guy he defeated in the arena today. It's probably nice to taste your own enemy. But even so, the guy's emotions did not change, and the sacred eye of Sauron looking at him from. The man is called by his sister who came to talk for a while, and he is very dissatisfied with the lady's voice. The words of the opponent said before his death were still in the poor guy's head, because they really are just weak-willed prisoners and will remain here. Meanwhile, the action is transferred to the kitchen, where the little girl has already had lunch after a long trip. She especially liked the meat, which turned out to be very tasty and tender. I wonder, the woman says that she specially tried to cook the dish in time for the arrival of the young lady. Apparently, they'd better get a teleportation stone for the girl so she doesn't have to make such a long journey. But no, she was only glad to travel across the country and see many beautiful views. And she knows still it was interesting to get by train, but there's only one thing she can't get used to. Granny notices that if he feels the heat so much, then she has definitely become a real resident of the capital. The girl just laughed. She will definitely get used to the fact that in this city, the sun and moon. And here the story is told why time goes differently in different countries. Because one day people decided. One god was very angry about this, and he made it so that in the west, a small piece of land between two states, which was located right at the junction of day and night, and a real war was unleashed. Many warriors of each state fell in that battle, but the Moon State won the victory and took these lands for it. But the king of the Solar Kingdom and all his people were called the real villains, and exiled to the farthest. The girl was just born in the state of the moon, but the lands of the sun were not so far from their village. So in any case, the family was very proud of their child. Soon she will become a real knight. The girl simply could not respond to such a large number of compliments, because she is just an ordinary child. But her parents still every night they prayed to the moon god to protect the young lady from ailments, and now she has become quite an adult. All these words made my brother very angry because they never said a good word about him. He just squeezes the spoon in his. The girl is shocked and cannot understand why her brother got up from the table so abruptly. Probably now it is very unpleasant for her to hear all these words, and he could at least be a little happy for his sister, because he himself. It was very insulting to the girl, because she considered her brother a very kind person. But now he says, after dinner, the young lady wants to enter her brother's room and talk to him about what happened at dinner. Upon entering the room, it turns out to be completely empty, and only books with various notes are scattered. She starts to look around the room, but suddenly she hears some rather strange sounds coming from the basement. She is surprised that it was tedious to go down and check everything as soon as possible, because the sounds were very loud, and she was worried that her brother. Opening another door, a terrible picture appears before her eyes. Because her brother was standing against. She abruptly runs towards her brother to stop this madness. Such actions are prohibited by law in this state, and he may have big problems. But apparently he doesn't care at all. This is his personal way to relieve stress and tension. And he doesn't care. A lot has changed since he last saw his little sister. Now she has become a knight. Let her just take him and arrest him as a real moon knight should. But she just can't believe that her brother. He tried to pass the exam many times, but why did they choose this indecisive girl to play the role of a knight of the kingdom? From all the words spoken by her brother, the girl becomes depressed at the age of 0. Lying on her bed, she realizes that her brother is completely right. Because unlike other knights, she did not. The lady did it for the sake of her family, because she does not like it when they say that her family is hanging on the brink of a. But now she needs to calm down. Thoughts of that boy who is sitting in the basement still did not leave her head. She should just close her eyes to it and pretend she didn't see anything. But suddenly there was a terrible scream, and she rarely got out of bed and grabbed her knight's sword and ran towards the screams. And so she stands in front of the door to her mother's room and cannot decide to go there. But why? What if her mother needed help right now? but her pathetic attempts to decide on action were interrupted by a sudden... Incredibly, she saw a huge demon that had just left her mother's room. But what was he doing here? But unfortunately, Our Lady lost all resolve from the Undertale game, and just stood there, and the demon has not been able to break into the Kingdom of the Moon for several hundred years. Then what is he doing here? There is no time to think. Somehow she deflects the blow of a huge paw. But this demon is too strong, his huge paws with claws, and yet she is the Knight Orthofavonius of Genshin Impact, and has no right to be afraid. The light begins to illuminate her blade, and with the help of the power of moonlight, she just makes a shish kebab out of it, and now the demon is defeated, and it seemed that it was already possible to relax. But she remembers the terrible scream. But what she saw there shocked her. Her father and mother were killed, and their lifeless bodies were lying on the floor. There was no time to blame herself, because she heard a lot of screams outside the window, and looking out the window, the whole village was on fire, and the huge army of the Demon King was destroying the settlement. All the villagers begged for at least one of the children to be spared, but the king was ruthless to absolute. Everyone in this village fell at the hands of the Sun King, and the village was burned to the ground. Meanwhile, while the Demon King looks pathetically into the camera, he is informed that they have long combed the entire village. Apparently she knows some kind of secret road that they don't know. But still the Dark Lord will get... This girl needs to be found as soon as possible, because only with her help he will be able to put his sinister plan... He was asked not to worry because all the soldiers were scattered around the perimeter, and she certainly couldn't run. A beautiful white-haired lady was running through the forest, but apparently after the recent battle she needs to get to the city as soon as possible, but unfortunately her body began to She curses the one-horned king who did this to her, but still she cannot give up, and like Naruto she is filled with self-confidence. Madame found some kind of house that she was able to reach safely, but for a long time Upon noticing the lady, the wolf immediately doubted his fighting abilities, because the look of this lady was... The best decision that the wolf made was an immediate retreat. I also did not fight with the one whose eye... But still she couldn't fight and falls almost unconscious straight to the floor. How could... She was always called the Demon Queen. She had a very high status and was always adored. But the most important thing is that she has always been very rich. What's going to happen to all her riches now? No, she can't lose everything so easily. Fortunately, she is a demon and has great power, so it will not be difficult for her to move her soul and her own into a new body. Absolutely anyone would suit her. A rat, a dog, absolutely any living creature. But it was tedious to find a new vessel. She shouldn't have scared that dog for no reason. It was a very rash decision, and now Madame is in a rather difficult position. But here's a miracle. She finally noticed the boy's body lying nearby, and believing in her... Finally, she will be able to overpower her soul into a new body, and will be able to return to her riches. She had already started casting a spell to transfer her soul into a new body, but just a second before the spell was... After all, our heroine survived this terrible struggle, and is already... After all, such a weak attack is not capable of destroying her strong soul, but her confidence was in... And not just wounded, this soul split in half. How could it be red like that? But suddenly, two halves of her soul scattered all over the room, and one of them moved into the life. The demon began to pray that at least half of her soul could be transferred to a new body. But her body... The girl was scared of the strange energy that flew into her, and she was surprised that this lady just turned into a mountain of dust. After all this, she lost consciousness, and now only two half-dead bodies were in a completely empty room in the middle of the battle. The next day has already come. Of course, the village was burned, and the troops of the Demon King left this place long ago. The girl wakes up in the middle of the room and sees only the body of a guy who also woke up, and his eyes shone with a bright yellow light. Strange sounds from the closet forces him to check what is going on inside, and he was a very unsuccessful knight, and he was severely wounded in the heat of battle. But my brother was very surprised that this guy was able to survive. Apparently even he is much better suited to the role of a... With the last of his strength, he begs for his last request to finally end his suffering and finish him off. Although the boy was reborn, he remained the same emotionless. Even the brightly glowing eyes expressed without showing a single emotion. He calls for a huge ray of light that ignites his brother's body. But even so, after killing another person, the guy's face does not change. It seems that the real grandfather... And now the next chapter, and Madame wakes up with a feeling of complete devastation and notices that the guy who... She looks around her house, which has been turned into dust and pieces of coal, and remembers how once she could have fun here, and her gaze became exactly the same as the guy who participated in underground battles, and the only thing left for her to bury all... But first you need to bury those who died as a result of this terrible filling. And so she takes the sword out of her hands, and here she was, sitting next to 3 graves with crosses. Her every thought was about what had happened. What should she do now that her parents and Bart are dead? But still her comrades are waiting for her. But the teacher's voice pops up in her head. He always told her that she was a fearless knight. These words were very important to her. And now with full confidence she grabbed... Now her path lies to the capital, where she can join her comrades in arms and tell them about the current situation. There should be a teleportation stone in a tower-like building, which will help her get to the capital as quickly. She swears an oath in front of her family's graves that she will definitely return here when the and so our madam, with tears in her eyes but still full of determination, leaves her native lands and begins her journey as. But of course everything can't start so easily, and a demon appears on the girl herself near a nearby tree and blocks. She begins to reprimand our heroine, because it was because of her that her soul was broke. But here's just a little problem. The heroine decided that she needed to add a little adrenaline to this manga, and is already. But suddenly her attack just goes through and she falls to the ground face down. The demon starts laughing at this girl as if she had watched a stand-up concert. It's amazing that she can still. And the girl was just sitting on the ground and couldn't figure out what kind of magic spell this lady had just used. But no, it's not magic. She just died and now her soul is doomed to wander forever without any hope of. But only the lady does not like the word died, because she just lost her body and now has become a. After all, it is the lady who is to blame for the fact that now she is a ghost. When she tried to inhabit, one of them moved into the boy and the other into her. But she can't change her body if she doesn't own the whole. But she just doesn't care about the words of a pathetic demon. Whether she sees those graves that. These are the graves of her late parents and brother, and it is the demons who are to blame for their deaths. She will definitely. I remembered Aaron Yeager a little. I'm sorry, in any case, she can already use her sword towards the demon. But maybe it's better for her to chop down trees with this sword. At least some benefit will come from her actions. The girl uses magic to deal with the ghost, but something goes wrong and a strong blow of light hits the ground directly. What just happened, she couldn't control the magic, so she also used the magic of the sun, which is subject only to demons. All her thoughts are interrupted by tuberculosis that came out of nowhere, and the lady starts. The ghost decided to ask for a little kindness and explains to the lady that a piece of her soul is now in the lady's body, and she cannot control her powers. The power of the moon and the power of the sun are fighting a real battle inside the girl, and since she is unable. By nature, demons are distributed with the power of the sun, and demons are born with the power of the moon. In fact, if both vessels existed in the same body, then nothing bad would happen. But here is a different case. In the body of a lady, the vessel of. And now the magic of the sun is slowly spreading through her body, and every time she uses the magic of the moon, it resonates with the magic of the sun. And now she has about 1 month left to live, after which the power of the sun will burn all her organs, like an Escanor of the 7 deadly sins. The ghost begins to laugh a lot at the girl because she is in a very difficult situation, but that's just that she herself. She wants so badly to finally get back into her body and take a hot bath, and now she's just a ghost who can't. And what is most annoying is the huge amount of money to which she no longer has access. Apparently and then a boy appears who carries the other half of the demon's soul, and he is ready to give it back so that the lady. He had the other half and was ready to return it, but what was only a little different, namely the boy's hand, was how it was definitely torn off during the battle with the wolf. And how did he manage to attach it back? He was obviously healed thanks to the power of the demon, which he safely took away while he was unconscious. Even more, and so since he survived thanks to the power of the demon, from now on he will become this lady's personal servant, and let him serve her. But the kid is a real Sigma, and is not going to obey some kind of demon ghost, so he just walks right. Perhaps he wanted to make her a marriage proposal, but this is even much better. He has heard the whole story of the ghost, and if he does this, she will be able to survive, so he is From this, the girl was confused and could not understand why this guy was ready to do this. But the demon she will be able to avenge her family and continue to live if she does so, when the two halves of the soul are reunited. Then the lady seemed to be pursuing some kind of her own goals, and that's why they tried to persuade the lady to Therefore, she asked her to quickly take her knight's sword in her hands and deal with the boy as soon as possible. Standing in front of a guy with a sword in her hand, she looked into his desert eyes and could not immediately decide to finish. The lady has memories in her head when she was still studying the art of moon magic at the academy. Her teacher told her about the vessels, and that if you pull out the magic that was trapped in a person's body, then After that, the lady could no longer decide on this, and tried to find another way to simply pull but he just doesn't understand all these human feelings. He's just an ordinary servant, is the life of a servant, but she just can't do that. She can't just move on with her life after taking another person's life. The demon obviously doesn't like it. She wants her to finish this guy off as soon as possible. She decided to go back to her original plan and return to the capital, where there are many, but the demon still wanted the guy to be turned into mincemeat, and why restrain himself with moral norms? Along the way, the boy just continued to follow her like a small dog faithfully obeying its master. The lady did not, but only her brother died, so now he has no commander. And since she is the sister of this brother, she is now named his mistress. They tried to convince the guy because she does not want the boy to be shackled by some. She takes out of her pocket the key that she took from her brother, and removes from the guy all the shackles that held him back. From now on, he is free to go wherever he wants, and can try to find his own way to fight for life. But only he will not be her servant. He will become her partner and will help her and fight shoulder to shoulder as a loyal ally. But only he does not understand such things as friendship and still wants to remain an ordinary servant. Since the guy wants to be a servant so much, it means it's useless to explain anything, and from now on their paths diverge. The lady turned her back on the guy and already started to leave, and he, like any in his memories, he recalled his entire terrible life, but still there was it was the memories of his mother who told him to always be free and choose his own path that made him come to his senses a little. Meanwhile, the lady was already close to the tower that was supposed to lead her to the capital, but she clearly didn't look. The demon seems to be worried about her, but he is worried only for his half of the soul that is enclosed in the girl. Finally opening the door to the tower, what appeared before their eyes could not leave them indifferent, because absolutely, and most importantly, the teleportation crystal was smashed to pieces and could no longer send people, and all hope would seem to have been lost. Because it was thanks to this crystal that she could move to the capital quick. Thanks to this crystal many years ago, the demons were defeated in the war against the land of. After all, they could move incredibly fast to places where other crystals were located. The Council of Demons was just discussing this issue, but unfortunately those who have the power of all the teleports were marked on the map, and the lady was amazed that the kids had made so many toys. But only while all this was being remembered, the lady had already lost consciousness and the demon tried to wake her up, but in her dreams she really wanted to eat because she hadn't eaten for She remembers how her mother cooked it, and but how suddenly a plate of fried chicken appeared in front of the eyes of a barely alive girl. Was it real? But it didn't make any difference. The feeling of hunger was so strong that she began to eat. Now after such a hearty lunch, she feels vital. But there are still many questions that, first of all, who prepared all this for her and carefully put it here and where she is now. She still finds the strength and decides to inspect this tower. If there is ready-made food here, it means that someone was still able to survive in this. She goes up several floors and sees the silhouette of a hooded man sitting at a table and trying to do something. Milady the Guardian runs to him as soon as possible to ask about how she can fix a broken teleporter. Turning this man around, it turns out that he has been dead for a long time and his entire face was. Still, she blames herself for what happened, because if she hadn't been so weak, she would have been able to save her family and these. She is already starting to come up with a plan, because the towers are quite close to each other, and it will not be but only her despair decides to be interrupted by a demon who appears literally out of thin air and says that all teleports in this country have long been destroyed. It was a plan that the Demon Queen came up with to deprive the Moon Knights of their power, but only she does not finish the sentence to the end, because then she will understand that it was this demon who destroyed. The demon says that she was a servant to the Demon Queen and heard their whole plan, but only the girl is not satisfied with the fact that the demon is so easy to talk about all this. Pouncing on her with a sword, she threatens her but still cannot do something serious. The girl tries to ask her how they got into their territory, because they had a barrier through which the demons could not. But she just can't know anything, because she's just a low-level demon. That such a weak girl can know about the king's. Still, even if there is no teleporter, she still needs to get to the capital. But even if she goes without a break, since the demon said that she had 30 days left, it is not particularly critical to spend 10 of them on the way to the This lady has too many unnecessary thoughts in her head that do not allow her to make the right decisions. Life gave her an easy way to solve the problem. She could just kill this kid and take the other half of his soul away from him, and the whole problem would be solved. But even when she just threw the idea away and decided to follow her personal principles. Just on the threshold of this tower, there was already a boy who had apparently just returned from hunting. Was he really just watching? And that cooked meat and a jug of water is also his handiwork. But he only boasted of his new prey. The lady needs strength to neutralize. But only the lady is not satisfied with this situation again, and all the requests of the demon for her to take it. She just gives the new clothes to the guy, because the one that he is wearing now stinks terribly of the battlefield. If he does not, it would be better for him to do it as soon as possible. She has long since left, and the boy was left standing with. Nevertheless, the lady decides to take a bath as soon as possible, because still the demon is very tired of this whole adventure and understands the girl perfectly. But only this time the heroine can't stand it, and with tears in her eyes begins to shout at her that she can't do it. She will never take away the soul of an innocent person. It is much higher than the norm, but only our demoness apparently also has feelings, and therefore decides to tell her that there is still another. Many years ago in the kingdom to the north of here, the Demon King himself was defeated, and but even so, half of the Demon King's soul is incredibly strong. And now the demon sets a new task for the heroine, so that she goes to this kingdom and gets half of this soul. This vessel was incredibly powerful, even though only half of it remained, but even so, the Moon King and his strongest ward. Therefore, it was decided to seal him in the highest tower like a Disney princess, and forbid everyone to contact the soul. Only a few of the strongest warriors and guards of the tower could somehow approach the incredible power. The lady is sitting in the bathroom in shock and simply does not understand. And now we have a real squad of 3 people. A loser demon who became a ghost, a little girl knight. It's not the best squad, but we don't have another one. So the demon is already going to head to the North Tower for this. The knight is not going to go to any tower because it sounds too ominous and dangerous. So the tower is also guarded, and they will, even if they get permission to enter the city, the guards will never let them into the North Tower. So the demon is indignant, since when do they need some kind of permission because their lives are at stake? But only the knight sees the situation differently. As soon as she enters the city, she will definitely meet her. Secondly, the tower is guarded by very strong magicians who have already mastered magic. And thirdly, she will have to meet with the white dragon who guards the dragon ridge on the way to the tower. In such cases, the demon suggests heading to the capital in order to get permission from his superiors. Yes, she is heading to the capital, but not to get permission, but for more useful things. So the Lady Knight thanks fate for the clothes and weapons they found in this tower. It's amazing why the demons didn't take them with them. Yes, just because they are imbued with the magic of the moon. For demons to carry such, that's just that no one asked the demon. And in general, why everyone just calls her a demon, she actually has a name. She would like to introduce herself as the Demon Queen, but unfortunately she chose. But at the same time, no one asked her again. And the guys begin their long journey to the capital, which will take. Every day they did nothing but eat rabbit meat, take hot springs, and sleep. We ate rabbit meat, took hot springs, and slept. We ate rabbit meat, took hot springs, and slept. And one day a brilliant idea came to the lady's head, because the boy brings, and since she has some culinary skills, she will be able to cook rabbit soup without any problems. Everyone was quite surprised when they found out about her culinary abilities, but decided not to argue too much. And now in the hands of the master, all the ingredients turn into a very appetizing looking. And finally the soup is ready and everyone was invited to the table, except for the ghost of the demon, of course. Finally the knight ate hot soup. Of course, it couldn't compare to what her mother. It was a real torture, and even though she was not hungry, she still wanted to eat a delicious rabbit soup. The boy was sitting with a hot plate of soup in his hands, and still did not start eating. The lady noticed this, and asked him to start eating as soon as possible. The guy decided to ask if she had added eyes to this soup, and although the question was quite strange for her, the kid started eating, and to his surprise, it was just an incredibly delicious soup. Of course, in any case, the boy was ready to cry, which is strange because feelings are the norm for him, but he immediately continued to enjoy the wonderful dish that the lady had prepared, and the demon continued to envy him. Because even he, and as soon as the lady found the strength to smile despite everything that had happened, she was glad that she could make. It had been night for a long time and our squad lay down to rest. The demon decided to rest specifically and fell asleep right on the log. But the lady couldn't sleep much and she decided to talk to the kid about his past, or at least to find. Remembering that slaves don't have names, she wants to apologize, but he is a little offended and still says that the lady hopes that her brother called him that, but even these words hurt the boy. She wonders why he followed her on such a dangerous journey. Is it really because he was once faithful to her brother? After all, she saved him only because she confused him with her brother, and therefore he does not need to. But only the boy does not answer anymore, and thinking that he is already asleep. It is quite difficult to understand a person who hides and suppresses all these feelings in herself, and it was already morning and our boy was sitting by the river and cleaning his knife from yesterday. But suddenly there was a terrible scream from the depths of the forest. It was so strong that the birds began to fly, and suddenly a beautiful lady runs out of the forest and asks our young man for help. Her relative, but that's just the guy somehow doesn't care what they tell him. The hunting knife won't clean itself and it would be better if, but only Madame is not satisfied with this situation. Her brother was kidnapped by demons and soon she gets tired of being ignored and just starts yelling at him that he's useless trash who doesn't deserve to live. And so our beautiful lady knight comes running to these screams and noticing her sword, she immediately asks her for help. Having shown the way to the village, they immediately set out on their way. And the demon is again not satisfied with the fact that soon they arrived at the place and decided to start hiding in the bushes. Because they are very brave. There were only 2 demons, so the lady thinks that she can easily defeat them because she has trained, and now she is already running at them with a gun but without shouting, as happens in typical unsuccessful plans. After all, a trap was prepared in advance for them, into which they safely fall. The heroes are caught according to the agreement, so the girl who brought them here demands food from the knight shouts at the children because they are the real traitors who lied to them about why these 2 are helping the demons. But this cage can be easily broken with the help of magic, because she cannot reach her. The magic in her hand is not concentrated, and the lady understands that this cage is enchanted with the help of demon magic. How could she have miscalculated like that? But only the demons are happy about it. Apparently the lady is a moon knight. But there's nothing remarkable about the kid, but for that one of the demons liked his eye color. The gentleman will definitely be pleased with such prey and will praise them, putting the cage on the cart they set off. And here she is, peacefully sitting on a tree and cursing the moment when she met this couple. How could she even let herself be grabbed in such a situation? And now the couple has already been transferred to one of the main demons in order for him to inspect this prey. They found them. The captain immediately sees that the lady is a knight, but his attention is attracted by a kid with an unusual eye color. The incredibly bright yellow color is like the scorching rays of the sun. He begins to wonder where his subordinates found such an... But he replies that in the forest, as he said about a second ago, it's quite ironic. This is probably the strangest dialogue in the entire history of the manga, because it is impossible. In any case, he is glad because now one older dude in rank will be able to transfer this guy to another older dude in rank, and apparently it will be like... The lady immediately begins to look around to understand where they were brought, judging by the fact that they did not drive for a long time. So it turns out that she noticed the coat of arms of the country that was located near their village. But that's just what happened to the... Here the main demon remembers about the knight's girlfriend and thinks what to do with her. Such audacity cannot be said goodbye. How dare she call those who bask in the sun dirty? Anyone who does not respect demons should be punished severely, and since she is a knight, then let her go to her usual place. And the kid needs to be protected like the apple of your eye, in case... The lady is clearly not satisfied that they were separated. And what is going on here at all? How dare they so brave? But suddenly her screams were interrupted by a very rare smell of rotten meat, and new questions. But with one good blow to the 5th point, it turns out to silence her and throw her into the cage in which the test will be. There were many meter-long bodies on the floor. These were all the villagers who were thrown here after filling, but there were also living people chained up, so the lady will not pass this test alone. Well, at least it pleases. That cool dude reappears, but already in a hood, and says that since everyone is now assembled, he begins to cast a spell and a strange golden rune appears in his hand, which he directs towards the... Suddenly each of them gets up and starts walking towards the knights, and the boy announces that whoever holds out against his resurrected army and stays alive will be eligible to participate in... And now the first round has begun, and the decaying army is already running at our fearless knights with weapons in their hands. But it seems that this demon has realized that they will not be able to fight when their hands are chained. Well, now it will be much easier, even though they were already close enough. The lady makes several sharp deviations from the opponent's attacks, after which she makes a very successful... The knight takes the weapon from the warrior, but it seems that even a toothpick would be much more useful. After carrying out many series of attacks, she seems to have already got... Initially, she thought that the knight would not last and would die from a single blow, but surprisingly, she shouts a lot of words of support to her and tells her not to dare to lose. Her gaze falls on the very demon who resurrected everyone here. It seems that he completely lost his head and mind. In her memories, when she was still a queen, she saw this guy who tried very... The lady clearly does not like him. He creates a lot of unnecessary noise, and she only thinks about how to kill... But despite this, during training, he shows himself quite well, and takes the place of the captain of the 3rd. Although he is terribly noisy, he will be of enough use in this war. And the boy also has some special skills that make him better than a simple soldier. Madame can't understand what special skills the Titan is talking about, but he tells her that the kid has some... Among the soldiers, he has long been given the nickname Necromancer. And he is able to return and control time for a while. He also uses it on the dead. The lady will slightly get caught by the fact that the boy is so talented, albeit annoying. And the real-time battle was in full swing, and the lady was already almost at the limit. The demon was still... Although these corpses are ordinary inept people, they are only resurrected. So also this vile demon resurrects people all the time after they are defeated by knights. At this, suddenly our heroine notices that one of the knights was attacked by a lady with an axe, and rushes to save his life as soon as possible. But only he stops her. He does not want her to kill her. Such actions are not clear, but the boy with tears in his eyes says that this is his wife, who refuses to listen to his words and just attacks. He begs her not to, but that's just the corpse doesn't care because it is under control, and any pleas from the guy for the beloved to remember him are useless. How can she do this now because he promised that he would definitely come back and save her, but why now she refuses to? The girl's lifeless eyes just stared at the guy, as if he were a target in darts and she was ready to finish this guy off. And he didn't care anymore. Without her, he turned into the grandfather of Kaneki Ken's Insider 3S rank, and let her finish with him as soon as possible and they can be together again, even if they are just corpses controlled by a... And with these words, she cuts off his head, which leads to an incredible shock for our knight heroine. How could she let her friend die again? But only now her problems begin. This madam looks straight into her soul, but for some reason does not move, but just stands and looks. But only the girl begins to have strange visions, in which a familiar voice calls her to go somewhere with her, and her own mother appears. Before the eyes of the girl, her entire dead family appears, who ask her to go with them. The girl blames herself for not being able to protect her family, and that now she is the only one. With these words, she just looks at her family without blinking and is ready to... But at the last moment, she is saved by a girl who fights with a pitchfork, and tells her to come to her senses. Now is not the time to soar in the clouds. There are not so many enemies left, and the resurrection has begun. It seems that the magic of this demon is not infinite and weakens over time, so they need to... The words of the lady inspire Virgil's motivation in our heroine, and she is like a real berserk. Many warriors had fallen in this battle, and the arena was filled with countless bodies of fallen. But finally, the demon's strength has run out, or he just got tired of watching this spectacle. He starts counting the remaining participants as if they were cattle in a pen, and unfortunately, there are only 10 people left. Only half. The demon orders the trial to be stopped and everyone to be put back in shackles before the next round begins. The lady was placed in the cell again and her hands were shackled. The chain was exactly the same as that time. She could no longer, so she couldn't find a way out of this dungeon. It seemed that hope was already lost. All of them were once residents and defenders of the state, but after the attack of demons, they all suffered a terrible fate. The lady begins to explain the rules of this tournament. It consists of 3 rounds, each of which is more difficult. The one who lasts all 3 rounds will be awarded the title of the winner and will be able to gain freedom. Such an evil demon cannot be trusted. He definitely never keeps his word because he is not Dasha the Traveler. But the old man has he had already participated in such a tournament once. Many warriors fell then, but only 3 managed. The team was a little inspired because hope dies last and all this useless nonsense. There are also prisoners of this kingdom in the neighboring cells, but they participate in the tournament separately. As a result, 10 people remain. The best plan in such a situation is to stick together and fight shoulder to shoulder, while the lady introduces our night girl to the entire team of this kingdom, 2 mercenaries, several knights. Well, the magician Gandalf, who is hiding in a corner and generally underestimates his abilities, because he is ashamed to call himself. She notices the girl's incredible skills for battle, but upon learning that she is a knight, she immediately... The conversation turns to how the demons managed to break into the kingdom of the moon, because there was a special barrier. Although it is not known how, the demons managed to break through this protection. The lady is just shocked by the words she says and completely denies them, because this is impossible. In any case, this is so. The demons broke into their territories and decided to first capture those territories that if they destroyed the barrier, then they were already able to defeat the white dragon that stood guard over the borders of the state. At this rate, they will be able to reach the capital, and then everything will be over. But only the other knights do not. They have the king himself, and a lot of knights who 100 years ago already won this war, as they say. If they could do it once, they can do it twice. But the only factor that will play here is that the current knights are not prepared, and are not nearly as strong as their grandfather. You think that warriors who have lived for 100 years in peace and harmony will be able to repeat that feat a century ago? A disagreement begins in the team. Someone believes that the knights of the present time... In the heat of this argument, the lady decided to think about it and withdraw into herself, but only she saw a rather familiar person in the next cell. Yes, this is the same girl who was not trapped, and now she realizes what a mess she got into. The lady immediately shouts at her, because if it weren't for her, the knight could be halfway to the capital. But our yellow-eyed one is fine, although he is also shackled, but this does not particularly bother him. He was given a private apartment with comfortable beds, and he just lay and rested waiting for some. Meanwhile, the lady was already scolding the children in full. You can't serve the evil knights in order, but they just had no choice. Unless they were able to do something about it, the children got into a situation from which there was, and that's why they had to help the evil knights. The boy who had been protected by his sister all this time, he begged not to touch her because they just wanted to eat. They had not eaten for several days, and such a tempting offer simply could not remain unapproved. The kid started to shed so many tears that even Our Lady felt uncomfortable and now felt guilty. Everyone here had, but you can't just leave it like that, so the lady asks you to promise these 2 little children. How sweet of her. The boy immediately begins to tell sad stories about how they lost their parents. She adjusts her gloves and holds out her little finger to maintain contact. Let these kids... These words bring tears to the girl's eyes and she asks for a reciprocal promise. But still, she thinks about what might die but makes a promise with the hope that everyone will survive. Indeed, if a first-class knight with a blade in his hand and moon magic could not cope, then how could 2 orphan children fight? It was already night, and all her companions were asleep, all except herself. She was thinking about how to get out of here. The demon sneaks up from behind and scares the lady very much. Makes fun of her in every possible... If only she had some kind of flying assistant who could conveniently walk through walls and find some secret way out of this prison. Then the girl gets an epiphany, because she has exactly such an assistant. Really, she always chased away the poor demon, and now when she needs help, she immediately crawled on her knees. Some facts can be overlooked. Does the lady really think that the demon is so stupid and did not do it in advance? In one day that she was in this, what a great fellow she is. Let her tell us the way out of prison as soon as possible, and that's why the prison is called a prison, which means that it is simply impossible to escape from here unnoticed. And the knight falls to the... But what about our faithful assistant servant? She saw him. Maybe at least he was more lucky than them. And then the demon tells about the boys. He sits quietly in his 5-star room on a comfortable bed and does nothing at all. Well, it seems that if he is ordered to stay in this cell for the rest of his life, he will only be... The demon says that in any case, she should only think about herself and be sure to survive in this difficult struggle. but only this reproduces the illusions she received as a result of the battle in the arena and her brother's words that she is the only. Madame wonders why he was the one who survived, but the truth is that the knight is very afraid. At night, strange things happen to one of the knights, as a result of which he begins to suffocate. In the morning, she wakes up to terrible cries for help, and opens her eyes to find that the knight is trying to wake up his He begs him because he promised that they would definitely return to their homeland after the tournament is over, but only the oldest of them decides to stop. This guy is already dead, and tears won't help to revive him. So it's not surprising that he died. We will remember his name, although he was never named in the manga, but we will still remember whoever he was. The Knights of the Sun enter the chamber and order everyone to leave the chamber. It's time for the next round, but that's just bad. But nothing. One more, one less. It does not play a special role, and they give the order to quickly remove this unnecessary The kid yells at them because they just don't have a soul, and that's why these knights are so evil. On the battlefield, everyone is concerned that they will avenge their comrades. That kid generally swears to kill all the titans. To the surprise of the lady, she notices that a prepared weapon is already lying on the floor. And even more, Madame is released from the handcuffs and she immediately grabs her precious moon weapon. But before she knows it, an attack is already flying at her, which is blocked by another warrior to save her life. But there is one. The resurrected man was one of the participants in the tournament, who was resurrected by this terrible demon sitting in it. Still, she is haunted by the fact that they are fighting with already killed warriors. It is quite strange. But what is even, it's like he's already been killed, then he was additionally beheaded. But even so, he's still able to fight. And he fights pretty well. He has already knocked the girl down on the spot with his incredible beauty. Anyway, I need to get rid of all this, and therefore the lady turns on the berserker mode. But how to kill someone whose head has already been cut off? But it doesn't matter. She just makes a few injections with. She remembers that she had already fought with this guy. She recognized him, of course, by his. She looks around and sees a couple of fighting warriors as a result of the battle. The warrior with the sword wins, but it was not there that this dude rises from the dead, stands on his own feet. The lady understands that her business is bad because he owns moon magic. She obviously won't say hello if she gets hit directly, so she decides to back off a little bit, but it's too late. The kid has already directed his spell against her, and in the next frame she flies into the nearest wall, which the lady did not have time to get up from the ground as the guy was already preparing the next salvo of the spell. It's bad. He uses a special type of moon magic called an explosive spell. Once upon a time, her teacher told her about this spell. Experienced magicians quite often use a similar trick. First, you need to create an aura of the night, and then start creating stars from which an explosion will occur later. For an average magician, it takes exactly one, but only Our Lady is a special case. She is not a magician, but a knight, and so she will study much harder than others and learn how to create stars in 0.8 of a second. Wow. But in fact, these are all ironic jokes by the authors. But in fact, it will be very useful. Although at first the lady thinks that she will not succeed, but the teacher sets her brain in time. In real time, the lady begins to believe in her powers much more. She has trained enough to, and now literally 2 seconds have passed, and a powerful explosion flies out of the hand, and this sorcerer, who is no match for our beauty, falls dead without strength. She immediately gets up and raises her sword because a new wave of enemies is already on the way, and they will not wait for her to rest. Our Lady strikes a lot of blows from this moment on. She is maximally motivated by Virgil's motive. Her every move is the result of years of hard training. A lot of sweat was shed while she honed every move to perfection. It was as if she was in some kind of dance, because these movements were similar to ballet. The lady made a lot of promises, and now she just has to get out of this prison alive and help all the prisoners. But only a strange feeling haunts her, because that lady is lying unconscious on the floor. And even more, she is now also a headless horse. All the comrades are lying on the floor and their bodies are completely motionless. But why did the demon really likes what is happening on stage, and he proudly announces the end of the second round of the test. Thank you very much for watching. Be active under this video in order for the next part to be released as soon as possible. Next, we will definitely find out how our team will get out of prison, and whether our young knight will be able to